Hey, Briggy's Bible, welcome back. Thank you for joining me again and for us being able to spend this time together. We're carrying on today thinking about an amazing thing that Jesus once did. Um, as people began to hear about like the news that there was someone out there like this, of course, like everybody from as far away as possible, like started to run towards him, and they were literally like scrambling over each other. And you're going to see today that they're like pulling the tiles off roofs to get near him. Everybody just wanted to be near him and to see him and to be able to get his help and to be able to connect with him in like a real and living way. Oh, that's so exciting, right? That should be what we're like as well. We want to be like those guys who are just like saying, let me get to Jesus. I want to get close to him. I want to get near him. I want to talk to him. I want him to talk to me. I want to get involved with all he's doing, and I want to really know him. So let's read the story. This is Mark chapter 2. A few days later, when Jesus again entered Capernaum, so went back to the same place again, the people heard that he had come home. So many gathered that there was no room left, not even outside the door. He preached the word. So the whole house was totally packed out. This was before health and safety and all that sort of stuff. So like the whole place was completely packed out with people. Um, some men came bringing to him a paralytic carried by four of them. That is so sweet, isn't it? Like this poor guy was living somewhere else and was paralyzed and unable to move. And he wouldn't have been able to make his own way to Jesus. But his friends had heard about Jesus, and then they think, let's get our friend to Jesus. Like, let's get him to come to Jesus. Now, today, you might be thinking about friends or somebody else in your family that you think, oh, if that person could get in touch with Jesus, that would make all the difference in the world to that person. And maybe they're not able to get to Jesus by themselves, like they're caught up with other things, or they're afraid to go to him, or they don't know how to go to him. Why don't you like learn from these four friends here, right? And then think to yourself, what would that look like for me to bring my friend or the person that I love, the member of my family, to Jesus? You might do it by praying for them, like talk to Jesus about them and say, this person's really struggling. I'd love you to help them and for them to get in touch with you. That'd be a great way. Or you could like talk to the person about what you're learning about Jesus and say, get in touch with Jesus as well. Like he'll help you. He's the answer, whatever you're facing. And let's see what these guys did, okay? Sorry, it's such an amazing story. I get carried away with thinking about things like that. Let's carry on with the story. Since this is verse 4, okay, so since they couldn't get to Jesus because of the crowd, they made an opening in the roof above Jesus, and after digging through it, lowered the mat the paralyzed man was lying on. So they were creative. Do you know what I mean? Like they thought, let's get him to Jesus whatever way necessary. Do the same. Learn from those guys and do the same to get those that you love to Jesus for help. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralytic, your sins are forgiven. What a beautiful thing for that man to hear. Son, your sins are forgiven. Jesus didn't treat the guy as an enemy or as someone that he wasn't interested in. No, he's like, son. And I'm not remembering all the things that you've done wrong. I'm not holding them against you. I'm not going to like bring them up as a big list and ask you to answer for each of them. No, it's like, no, son, your sins are forgiven. I'm dealing with all of those sins and I'm washing them away. We don't need to talk about them again. They're forgiven and gone. What an amazing thing for that man to hear on that day. Have you heard Jesus saying that to you? I've heard him say that to me, and that made all the difference in the world. That Jesus, who's so awesome, so kind, such an amazing person, should say that to me, that he doesn't remember all the things that I've done wrong and he's actually forgiven them. that made all the difference in the world to me. It'll make all the difference in the world to you as well. He wants to say that to you today and to set you free and forgive you for all of your sins. Now, some of the teachers of the law, oh, those like terrible religious people, they were always getting in the way. They didn't know Jesus and didn't love him and didn't understand him. And so they were always like creating problems. So if you're not a religious person, don't worry at all. That's a massive advantage. That's not a disadvantage at all. That puts you in like a much better position. It's those like religious people who never got Jesus and only ever tried to create problems and difficulties for him. Well, what did they say? They were sitting there thinking to themselves, why does this fellow talk like that? He's blaspheming. Who can forgive sins but God alone? And like in a sense, they were right. Yeah, it's only like you can't forgive like somebody else's sins. Only like the living God can do that. But they were sort of already assuming that Jesus wasn't the living God and the eternal Son of God the Father, which of course he was. So that was their like terrible mistake. Now, verse 8, immediately Jesus knew in his spirit that this was what they were thinking in their hearts. So Jesus can like read our minds, read our hearts. He knows your thoughts. You can't hide anything from him. And he knew what was going on in these like terrible religious people's hearts deep down inside them that they thought was all like, under wraps, kept to themselves. And he said to them, why are you thinking these things? Which is easier to say to the paralytic, your sins are forgiven, or to say, get up, take your mat and walk? Well, what would be easier of those two things to say? Probably like to say your sins are forgiven. In a way, because you wouldn't really actually know if that was true or not. Like anybody in one way could just say, yeah, your sins are forgiven. But we wouldn't really know if that was true. But that you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins, he said to the paralytic, I tell you, get up, take your mat and go home. Okay, so in other words, it would have been easy for anyone really in one way, like to say your sins are forgiven, but they might not really be at all. But to say like to get up to a paralyzed man, you couldn't just say that and try and pull the wool over people's eyes. So Jesus said that. What happened? He got up, took his mat and walked out in full view of them all. This amazed everyone and they praised God, saying, we've never seen anything like this. So see what Jesus did? Jesus had the power to just say to the guy who couldn't move, who was completely paralyzed, get up. The guy got up. Like when Jesus speaks, the impossible becomes possible. And as he did that, Jesus showed, well, he showed a lot of things. He showed that he's able to heal our bodies again and to set them right in the way that he's going to one day set everything in the whole universe right. But he also showed that he's the one who has authority to forgive sins. He's able to forgive your sins. Whatever you've done, it doesn't matter what you've done, what you've said, what you've thought, what's been done to you. Jesus is able to forgive that today. Hear his voice to you, his word to you, son or daughter, your sins are forgiven. Be like that man. Roll up your mat, the bed that you were lying on. Stand up and walk to new life with Jesus. God bless you. Thank you for watching.